Hello everyone, my name is Sean. Welcome to Wistful Thinking. I've been wanting to do video reviews for a long time now, at least go back to it. I used to do it back in the day. But I've been wanting to return to it because I don't know, I just feel I have more to say. Like, writing a review is one thing and you speak differently when you write versus when you talk to someone. Granted, I'm by myself in my room, but I kept putting it off. I told myself I would start this at the beginning of 2026. It's January 31st right now. And one of the reasons is behind me. Look how bare everything is back there. I told myself I would put some posters up. I would get some lighting, you know, because I just have some like overhead lighting in here and it's not lit like nice, you know. There's no colors, you know, color lights in the background like all the YouTubers do. But, you know, at the end of the day, I'm going to make time or I'm going to make excuses. So now I'm making time to do this review. And it's not the first review I thought I'd be doing, but today we're going to talk about Iron Lung. That's Markiplier's movie. And if you're unfamiliar with Markiplier, he is a YouTuber. I've watched very little of his stuff, of his videos. But the little of it I have seen was enough for me to gauge that he was a pretty cool guy and definitely a passionate guy. I mean, don't get it twisted. Anyone that has the you know, the will to make a movie and follows through and actually releases it in theaters, that's insane. So there's no questioning his passion for the project at all. So before we get into it, this is going to be spoiler free until we get to the spoiler segment, and then I'll hop into it. So if you're afraid of spoilers, I don't know if this is the kind of movie that can really be that spoiled, you know. I think you kind of know what you're going in for. If you know Markiplier, you're probably familiar with the game Iron Lung. And if you don't know him, I don't know if this is on your radar. But it probably will be after this weekend, but we'll get back to that in a second. So Iron Lung, it takes place in a kind of a post-apocalyptic future. There's something called the Quiet Rapture that happens. And basically, connection is lost, like throughout the stars. Like, we've traveled through space and shit like that. But connection's lost. If I'm not mistaken, I think in the movie, all right, confession, I missed like the first like 10 minutes of the movie, but I was running late. But then again, most movies you can miss the first 10 minutes and it's kind of fun to catch up on. But I'm aware of what the game is and what the setting was, so I didn't feel like I missed too much, but maybe I did. But I feel like in the movie they make mention that all the stars and the planets are just gone. Maybe that was a metaphor. But either way, connection was lost. Everyone's kind of stranded. And there are these blood oceans that have popped up on several moons. And so humanity, or what's left of it, is sending submarines down into these blood oceans. But not just any submarine. They send just a small, tiny submarine with a convict inside. And they weld him shut into the submarine so he can't escape. And the idea is that he's going to go down, see what's going on in this blood ocean, and return with some information. And in exchange, they will give him his freedom. So that's the setup. We're going into a blood ocean. And in the submarine, it's very cramped and tiny. This is very much a closed room drama, as they call it. So it's just one location the entire time. There's very few instances we see outside the sub. Mostly it's looking out. You can't see anything out the window because there's blood, but there is an occasion where he'll be in the surface, Markiplier's character, who's named Simon. I want to say Simon. I should look it up. Is it Simon? It is. Because throughout a lot of the movie, they just call him Convict. Anyway, sometimes Simon has to return to the surface and speak with, you know, the people up there. But anyway, very cramped controls. And the way he navigates through this blood ocean is a giant X-ray machine. And in order to activate it, he has to leave his seat and go to the back of the cabin where there's a button, boom. And then there's a giant picture that lights up, an X-ray, you know, of what's in front of him. And so by doing that, he's able to like make himself a little bit of a map and stuff like that. And he soon discovers he's not alone in the blood ocean. So yeah, this is a movie. It's 2 hours, 2 hours and some change with credits, and it's definitely a movie that could have not been that. I think we could have made it a tight 90 minutes. The game itself is kind of a nothing burger of a game, at least the initial version. In the game, you just travel via submarine, just the way I described. And there's key points on a map. You have a map made out for you. So you travel these key points, you take pictures, it looks like bones or wreckage, it's hard to tell. And then at the end of the game, there's a jump scare and it ends, and that's kind of it. They did update the game shortly afterwards to include lore. So you get more of the all right, what's actually a little bit more of what's going on, what I explained to you. There was kind of two warring factions. We get a little bit of that history during all this stuff and how Simon is involved with that. And in the game, you don't talk to anyone. It's just you doing your thing. But in the movie, there is a speaker that Simon has, and he can communicate with Ava, who's like his contact up above on the surface. However, he has to reach a certain depth in order to talk to her. So she's not always available and stuff like that. So that's kind of the setup. He's going to explore the ocean and see what's going on. And I can see the appeal. It's pretty well shot for the most part, considering how dark it is. But I think my main issue with it is just there's just not a whole lot there. There's information that needs to be doled out in a narrative, and all right, we understand what our hero is doing and what's going on, but that never really changes too much as the movie goes on. And the third act just gets a little weirder from there. For my gamers out there, if you're familiar with Dead Space, there's, especially in the sequels, our hero, Isaac Clarke, is kind of almost infected, and he's seeing things, he's hearing things. And I think this movie wanted to do that too, where Simon is not sure if what he's seeing or what he's hearing is actually real. But at no point have we established that whatever creature is down in the blood ocean can actually do that, or why they want to do that, or what their end goal really is. Not so much, except Simon must be stopped. Finding out the truth or whatever's going on down there. And I think one of my big beefs with the movie is we never really know what that truth is. What the stakes are, why we should care at all. I mean, there is kind of an end goal for Simon that we eventually find out, but we don't really know how that ties into anything that's going on. Why is there even a blood ocean? You don't really know. There's speculation, but a lot of this stuff had me reaching for Wikipedia articles after a movie. And even with the game, the initial game, it's I think if you have to read articles after the fact to explain what's going on, then you failed as a narrative. And I'm not talking about in the sense I just watched Mulholland Drive. That was crazy. What's going on? What are some theories online? Because David Lynch obviously constructs his movies in a way that they're puzzles, and he wants the viewer to kind of put together their own, image. What is your interpretation of what I just showed you? This isn't that kind of movie. And I think those movies where you have to look up a lore thing, it's unsatisfactory. That's probably the biggest thing, the blurb I could say about the movie. Unsatisfactory, And even when I did look up the lore, all the lore I could look up, and I watched the original Markiplier playthrough, which is only 45 minutes. And then there's a lore video following it, which is 30 minutes. And then there's even a updated thing where he played the game after filming the movie, which was really enlightening and made me appreciate what he had to go through a lot more. However, watching all those is shorter than the movie and more fulfilling than the movie. I think, I don't know, when it comes to those indie games where it's just there's not really a lot of narrative, there's just a little bit of the gameplay and a lore dump, that doesn't make for a satisfactory experience if you're just going to translate that, like copy paste what's in the game. I think Five Nights at Freddy's is a great example. I don't know a ton of the lore, but I can tell you I watched the first movie and found that very unsatisfactory. I do think Iron Lung is better than Five Nights at Freddy's. I haven't seen the second one, but I think there's a little more artistic integrity going on with Iron Lung. But that's about it. It's a commendable effort, but there's just not a lot going on in, like, 2 hours worth of movie. It's like, okay, that's it. I guess we're done here, and it's just not a very compelling experience. But it's different. If you're a fan of Markiplier, then maybe it's definitely a must-watch. I remember leaving the theater and, like, there were people in, like, Markiplier shirts and, like, sweatshirts and stuff like that who saw him. I thought that was kind of neat. I love that support. I love he has that fan base kind of baked in to help him support his endeavor. And I also like that looking at the numbers, it looked like Iron Lung made $8.9 million Friday evening, the day it was released, basically. And this is on a $3 million budget, which, if I'm not mistaken, was self-financed by Markiplier. So for him, that's a great success. That's awesome. So I'm happy in that regard. However, let's get into spoilers. Not that I don't feel like there's much to spoil, but, like, there's a creature down there in the blood ocean, and it can, I guess, infect his head. The blood itself from the ocean that kind of drips into the Iron Lung, as it were, it, like, infects his skin. It changes it, so it has the ability to, I guess, change physical matter. I'm not sure what it's turning him into. It looks like he's turning into, like, one of Davy Jones' men from the Pirates of the Caribbean movies, the second one. But, like, we never really see the end game of that. Simon is hallucinating. And what he discovers is basically there's this vessel at the bottom of the blood ocean. It was, I guess, investigating what was going on, and Simon is able to download the information from that vessel's black box into his own. And maybe that'll explain what's going on. I mean, I think for the narrative, we need a little bit more on why that would matter. Because, like, not so much that would matter, but, like, does that vessel really have information? From what we can glean from the movie, it was just wrecked by the monster, who has, I guess, psychic powers and blood powers. But what's the end game here? Like, why? Just why? I don't know. I think as a whole, I just found the background and the build-up just not to be very compelling. It was like, all right, that's it, I guess. And especially, again, how that narrative rolls out. There's just a lot of dragging. And not a ton of explanation. For example, Simon finds a note buried in a grate from, I presume, someone who was previously in the sub, but, like, what happened to him? Like, he evidently made it back to the surface, but did he die? Was he executed? Whatever. And he's told how to turn on the computer inside the sub by crossing some wires, but, like, why? If Simon was locked out of the computer, which he is, via password, then why would it matter if it was unplugged to begin with? It's just, I don't know, little things like that. And of course, from a gameplay perspective, he has to go to the back of the sub to, bam, hit that button, light up an x-ray, see where he's going, and then go back to the driver's seat to do it. It's done that way because that's how the game is designed. But if people are building a sub specifically for this purpose, you just put the button right on the console where you're driving, boom, and have the image right there. Like, I think these are the kind of sacrifices you have to make in order to make a movie to make sense. I think Five Nights at Freddy's, that's another, well, I mean, the movie doesn't really follow the gameplay at all. At least the first one doesn't. But the whole setup for the game is that you're just in the control booth and you have limited power and you can only shut this door, or turn on that light. And that's the gameplay thing. It doesn't translate very well to a movie. And this is one of those things that doesn't translate to a movie too much. It doesn't make sense from an engineering perspective. But, that was just my thoughts on it. So honestly, I'd say if you're like at all interested in this, I'd watch the Markiplier video or videos. And I think that has a little bit more going on that, I don't know, it's, the Markiplier video works better. And actually, I don't even think the game is that great. Sorry, creator of the game. But it works better because he's constantly talking to his audience. And I think if he could have tapped into something like Moon, where Sam Rockwell is either has something to talk to, like a, the droid he has on the system, or eventually someone else in the story, we could work that into the character and work that into the narrative. For example, what if Simon had to record his findings on his own, like black box, like record a voiceover, like, captain's log, something like that. I think that probably would have worked better. In the movie, they try to set it up where he's speaking to Ava, but he only can speak to her at certain times, and I'm not sure that works as well. They could have done that angle, but, they need to make, like, that could have been like a friendship forged there. But again, it's just a missed opportunity. But also, I think that's because, maybe in part due, because Markiplier knows the lore and setup, and he's like, well, I don't want to reveal anything. Just like the game, you have to look into it on your own. Maybe that's what he was going for. I mean, I think that's a situation where the creator knows so much about the topic, it seems obvious to them. But as an outsider watching it, it's just like, what's going on? Why is this happening? Why is this important? It's missing a lot of those beats. So I didn't hate the movie. It is a movie by definition. I think it was a solid effort on a lot of fronts, but it also stumbled and failed on a lot of fronts too. So that's why I give it a 5 out of 10. And my rating system is a little bit different. You may hear 5 out of 10 and he's like, oh, you fucking hated it. No, 5 out of 10 is exactly what it sounds like. It's right in the middle. I didn't like it or dislike it. It's just boom, there it is. Any less, I would have disliked it. Any more, I would have liked it. Does that make sense? So that's my rating for Iron Lung. And it's not even the worst movie I've seen in 2026. But January is generally considered a dump month for movies. Sometimes we get some really good sleepers that kind of slip in. For me, this isn't it, but for others, certainly this seems to be the case. I'm looking up the Rotten Tomatoes score right now. I know from critics, it's sitting at a 50%. So Rotten Tomatoes, I'm sure you know how it works. Basically, it's not telling you it's 50% good. It's telling you that 50% of the critics who saw it liked it. However, the popcorn meter, which is everyone else that can chime in that is not a critic, is sitting at 90%. So I think that tells you that basically his fan base is really into the movie, which is cool. We've already talked about the box office. I know he was super passionate in making it. So I commend him for his effort, man. Making movies is hard. I've made some low budget ones, and those were super hard. And that's just low budget. I couldn't imagine, shelling out $3 million, not only to make it, but to get it in theaters was a battle all on its own. So that's awesome. And I know in the last video that Markiplier did relating to Iron Lung, he said he wanted to, like, this wasn't the end game for him. Like, he wanted to do another project. And I hope he does, because as far as like, I don't know, every now and again you hear about like a YouTuber that tries to do a movie, Chris Stuckman, for example, Shelby Oaks, which I haven't seen, but I've heard about. You hear it, and sometimes they just kind of flounder and flop. Let's see how much Shelby Oaks made. Let's see. It made $6 million worldwide. So that's pretty bad. Its budget was a little under $3 million. So about the same budget as this movie. So in this regard, it's a massive success. There's a lot of like indie horror movies that are doing really well right now. You probably heard of the Terrifier series. However, I like Iron Lung a lot more than the last Terrifier movie I saw, which was the second one. So, good for Markiplier, man. I'm happy for him. I'm not happy I didn't like his movie, but like, that's just me. If other people dig it, that's awesome. So yeah, that's all I have to say about Iron Lung. Thank you for joining me on the initial video review here. I'm gonna work on this and the lighting eventually, Not today. It's too lazy. But let me know what you thought if you saw the movie. I know some of my friends saw it, so yeah, just let me know your thoughts, and you guys take care. I didn't know what to say to end it, so I was like, take care, goodbye.